having, Val just said this meeting is being recorded. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I know some folks were having issues with the Zoom link. So we will be recording this meeting and putting it up on nolaba.org. But thanks, everybody, for joining for our second quarter virtual site tour series. We are talking about e-commerce distribution today. I know everybody in the email that I sent out and the invite, we all are getting packages at our door all the time. And the influx of that type of business is showing itself in the industrial and commercial real estate markets across the country. And we think New Orleans is really well poised to take advantage of some of the shifts that are taking place in the marketplace. I love to, I'm actually in the office right now. I'm, looking out at, I can see the curve of the Mississippi River. And, it's really cool that New Orleans has been here for 300 years because we're a good place to get things in and out to other parts of the country. And that's a reason why, the city still exists. So it's cool that with all the changes in technology, we feel like there's still big potential for some of those original reasons of, New Orleans founding. So I wanted to start off and go through the agenda. So I like to start off with trends about the topic that we're discussing. E-commerce has changed a lot over the past year and a few months. And there's some really amazing statistics. And basically I've heard that e-commerce has leapt 5 or 10 years over the past year. So these are all things we expected to happen, but they're just happening at a much quicker pace due to COVID and the quarantine and the pandemic and shifts in consumer behavior. Then I want to go back and talk about e-commerce and distribution in the New Orleans area. Like I said, the Port of New Orleans is a huge asset, and we already have a lot of commercial goods coming in to New Orleans, spreading out to the rest of the country. So I just want to remind everybody of what we have and some of the infrastructure that we have in New Orleans. Talk about some of the new opportunities that we'll have with infrastructure. Then we'll go to our port panel. So Amanda Coates and Patrick Beard will be joining us. Patrick's making his second appearance here in the NOLA BA virtual site tour. Amanda's making her debut. And we really want to talk about some of the investments that the port is making to make sure companies of all sizes can take advantage of some of the e-commerce distribution potential in New Orleans, as well as, just kind of what kind of services we have now from New Orleans. We have a lot more connectivity via ocean-going ship than we did, 4 or 5 years ago. And all that's real important for getting goods in and then to the rest of the country. Then we always like to talk to entrepreneurs and the small business folks, building new brands here in New Orleans. So we'll talk to Kenesha Brown and Krista Cotton. Kenesha's with Another Level Beauty, and Krista is with New Orleans Beverage Group, which produces El Guapo Bitters. Both of those companies are really using e-commerce to put the pedal to the metal for their businesses. Both are products that we've generally thought of as more kind of in-person products that are rapidly evolving into e-commerce products. So that's always interesting. And then we'll take a couple of site tour views of some buildings and sites around New Orleans that I think would be a good opportunity for e-commerce. And then we will take some questions and answers for all of our panelists today. And then we'll go over the future site tour dates. And as always, please submit any questions in the chat box, or you can email me, ldavid@nolaba.org, and we'll get to some of your questions at the end. So let's kick it off. This is, like I said, e-commerce has grown about 10 years worth in a year. So last year for 2020, e-commerce was up 44% over 2019. So people were spending 44% more money on e-commerce than they were the year before. We know there were a lot of, constraints on, oh, I'll ask everybody to just mute if you can. Thank you. But, you know, there are a lot of constraints on where we could shop. So obviously a lot of that's going to move to e-com, but of all retail gains in 2020, 101% came from online sales. So everything that was lost on the in-person channels and more was added to the retail category. So that means that sales declined at stores, catalogs, and call centers. So we're seeing some of that. You know, some of the e-commerce gains are new and just advances in technology, but we're also seeing things shift to e-com that were not very popular e-commerce products before. So as of last year, online spending is now 21% of total retail sales in the US. So that's 1 out of every $5. And this point, I thought, you know, when you say e-commerce, a lot of people automatically default to Amazon, thinking of Amazon in their minds. Amazon definitely has a huge part of the market, 31% of all e-commerce in 2020. That's down from 43% in 2019. So that really shows that the companies providing e-commerce services and the brands and, you know, retailers that consumers are choosing are evolving. So, you know, not only do we have more people offering e-com, but people are looking to buy things online that previously they had not bought. And that's what I think the chart on the right is interesting too. You know, you see Amazon up in the #1 spot, but it used to be, you know, Apple at #2 and Walmart at #3. Those swapped last year, which shows you, you know, e-commerce is moving from something where you bought just a couple of retail categories. You know, Apple only sells technology products. Walmart sells everything, you know, just like Amazon. And if you look also on there, you see Target moving up, which also Walmart and Target, you know, food is a big part of what they sold last year via e-commerce. But look at Kroger. You know, Kroger's not in our market, but entering the top 10 where they're only selling food. So we're starting to see categories like food, you know, like Kenesha and Krista's industries coming in and being categories where people are comfortable buying online. So I think that opens the net wider for all kinds of companies. So these are some companies doing major e-commerce and distribution work in the New Orleans area, and I'm sure I left some off. Folgers roasts every bean in America in New Orleans East. PJ's fulfills all of their online orders at their roasting facility in the Bywater. But, you know, on an even larger scale throughout the metro area, we've seen more companies look at New Orleans as an entry place for their goods, mostly from, you know, outside of the country to distribute to our entire region. Rooms to Go is up in St. Tammany Parish. Medline just signed a big deal to build a big facility in Tangipahoa Parish. We've got Associated Wholesale Grocers, Walmart, Zatarain's, all importing a lot of products through New Orleans and exporting them to, you know, not only the region, but to the entire country. So I think this slide is proof that big brands are already here and doing it, as well as smaller, medium-sized brands. And we just need to emphasize how easy it is to do business here. So, you know, our network, this is what the folks at the port and our folks sell every day, you know, unmatched rail connectivity across the country from the New Orleans area. 6 Class 1 railroads you can get anywhere in the United States, Canada, Mexico, you know, on one rail car. And then if you look at the right, the water network, it's crazy to me to think that you can put something on a barge in New Orleans and it can go all the way to Pittsburgh, which seems just very far to me and not connected to the Mississippi River, but it is. Minneapolis, you know, as far west as Oklahoma City. So this just gives us lots of options in addition to our road network. And Amanda and Patrick will talk a little bit about the roads kind of leading into New Orleans for international importing, which is, you know, crucial for e-commerce and distribution.
Absolutely.
But you know, I always like to say that we're much better air connected than we think, and air is coming back. I don't know if anybody's flown lately, but I flew to Chicago for our first business trip, came back about 3 weeks ago at 11 a.m. on a Friday. The airport was packed. Now, most of that is leisure travel right now. But what that gives us the opportunity to do is to put air cargo on those passenger planes. So, you know, services that were, you know, drastically cut down in the beginning of the pandemic are now starting to come back in a more meaningful way, driven by leisure travel. But that's giving us the nonstop air cargo opportunities that we've had. In the, you know, the international flights are a little bit slower to come back. British Airways to London is that's a fingers crossed story. They have canceled other smaller U.S. markets from London. They have not canceled New Orleans. We are still officially a route that is postponed. So that's a good sign. I feel like they see some opportunity in New Orleans, that they're still investigating that route. They're still only flying to like 5 or 6 cities in the US right now, as especially transatlantic travel is very limited, but quickly changing as to who can travel. So we'll be excited to get that link back. And then I'm sure everybody saw the big news out of the airport last week. Breeze Airlines is a new startup. They're establishing a hub in New Orleans, which you know, is giant. They are founded by the founder of JetBlue. So he's got a great track record of knowing what he's doing and running successful airlines. He's done one in Portugal and Brazil. And what Breeze will do is give us these really needed nonstop links to some of the medium and smaller markets throughout the country. So, you know, Charleston, Norfolk, big port markets will be able to get back and forth between some of our cities where people who do a lot of work with trade, transportation, logistics also have other facilities. And then, you know, Bentonville, Northwest Arkansas, that's Walmart country. Every major commercial or, you know, home goods producer has an office up there. They do a lot of work up there. So we're excited to have not only the people connection with nonstop service between these, you know, middle-sized markets and New Orleans, but also to have that ability for eventual air cargo connections, you know, nonstop, same day kind of stuff. So air's coming back. If you're looking to fly this summer, there's a lot more capacity than there was last summer, and that's always good for business. So another big development in New Orleans over the past couple weeks and months is the city's continuing to move forward with redevelopment proposals for the Six Flags Jazzland site at 510 and I-10 in New Orleans East. And our friends at the port will talk about why that's going to be a really crucial location moving forward. But right now, where we are in the process, the city's selection committee has chosen 2 finalists. The first one on your left, Kiernan West, they're a commercial developer out of Colorado, and they've partnered with Shield One, which is an organization that Drew Brees is associated with. They're proposing basically a transportation logistics park with significant nonprofit amenities for the community. So, and in between the first and the second meetings, I saw them kind of open up to what some of those nonprofit needs could be. They showed a lot of flexibility there. So that's going to be interesting. But the other finalist, Bayou Phoenix, that's led by a local group, they've got a little bit more variety in their proposal with logistics, but also a water park and a sports center. But also in between the first selection meeting and the second selection meeting, I saw them talk more about logistics as they've further evolved their plan. And they've also pulled in some developers from Texas who have a lot of connections and development experience in the industrial distribution area. So the next step for this project will be a final selection meeting, TBD sometime in late June. So it's very possible we come into the middle part of the summer with a much clearer view of, hey, this is a big distribution project that's coming online in New Orleans with all of the geographical and transportation advantages, and also with, professional real deal developers at the helm of this project. So I'm excited to see the next steps, and these proposals, both bode well for options in New Orleans. There we go. All right. Well, so I wanted to kick off our port discussion with Amanda and Patrick. First off, thank y'all for joining me. And I wanted to ask both of you, why does the port see distribution and e-commerce as a way to grow? What's the big value there?
Great question, Lewis. Thanks for having us both. So we have, and let me talk about our challenges for just a second. So the Port of New Orleans is historically, mostly exports. So we're 70% exports and 30% imports. The challenge there is getting the equipment availability always here for the exporters. So we have such a heavy manufacturing corridor between New Orleans and Baton Rouge. We really see the challenges on the export side, but it's mostly driven by the equipment availability of import boxes and reusing those boxes for exports. The other challenge that we have, which will play into the Jazzland piece of property, is that we are restricted to 10,000 TEU vessels, and these vessels cannot get under the bridge. And in containerization, vessels are getting larger. We are at 9,600 TEU vessels, and that's just the size of the vessel and how many containers can get on the vessel. So it's really restricting us having this bridge. So a couple of investments that we're doing is we have a $100 million project right now where we've ordered 4 cranes, expanding our footprint from 840,000 TEUs throughput to about 1.2 million. And we're also in the due diligence phase for a new property downriver that will expand our footprint from 1,100 industrial acres to about 2,200 industrial acres. And it's very important for us to balance those export moves with a better 50-50 trade balance on the import side. So we've taken a very close and focused we're very focused on looking into distribution and targeting distribution centers and added value, and really just to balance the exports. So we, in so much that while we're looking at building a new container terminal, we're also adding throughput to the current container terminal. And we're working with the state of Louisiana currently to pass a House bill that will be directly for importers. And that will be an import tax credit for liability in Louisiana. So again, we have a huge focus. We do see some opportunities. Our terminal, our second container terminal downriver, is located east, slightly southeast of the Jazzland site. And so let's see. So if you're looking at New Orleans, right, Jazzland is located along 510. Our terminal will be right off of 510. So we definitely see the logistics piece playing into Jazzland, and also, current container terminal, the future container terminal, the transportation system there. We're, the only deep water port in the United States that has the Class 1s, as Lewis mentioned. And also, our rail connections are unmatched. Our intermodal connections into other gateways is a great opportunity. And then, the highway access, and as well as the river. I mean, the natural gateway through New Orleans and the Mississippi River is really, it's really a great asset of ours, and we will continue to use that. And that the new container terminal will have barge access. Those will be sites that will play into, and this is a conceptual drawing of our new terminal here. So this is 1,100 acres. So we currently have 1,100. The terminal will be 350-acre terminal footprint, and the rest will be available for development. So our idea is really, so we're a landlord port, and really we like to attract businesses that are added value to cargo flows, bringing more cargo, let's say grain transfer facilities, resin packaging, petrochemicals. We have a granite distribution center along the Inner Harbor Canal. We have a flexi tank provider, which is basically transloading liquid bulk, food and non-edibles from rail car and truck to and from container. So we've done a great job at attracting those businesses, added value facilities, really to I guess facilitate the export commodities. As of today, we don't have the massive consumer population that a Houston would have, or a Savannah would have, or the Upper East Coast. So we do have, but we have connections, and so that's really our strength. And we do see there is a huge need for distribution centers and e-commerce into New Orleans, really to balance the trade, to be an economic driver, and also to retain those manufacturing, the post-production of the manufacturing. Without imports, you have no export containers, and therefore export cargo is manufactured in Louisiana, and then it flows through other ports. And other states are benefiting the economic impact from that. So we definitely see it as a challenge for now, but also an asset and an opportunity in the future that we can grow our distribution center, our footprint. And talking about Amazon, Amazon has a huge footprint here. They're growing massively. There's 2 facilities that are being built, actually 3 of them now, Shreveport for robotics, one in Corinthia, close to Lafayette, and the other one in Baton Rouge. These are close to anywhere from 800,000 to 1 million square feet, all for e-commerce. And a lot of that cargo still flows through the West Coast ports, just because of proximity, because they're transloading warehouses, their proximity to Asia, and that actually gives me a good point to go into our connections. So our global connections, we have 3 global alliances. We have 13 weekly services and 3 weekly Asia services. So we just had an announcement earlier this year, and we will receive our 3rd Asia service. Now, in terms of Asia services are driven by imports. New services, in fact, are driven by imports. So it's very important for our manufacturing sector to have that balance, that perfect 50-50 balance. And I will say that a lot of other states they do have that density population, so they don't have these challenges. But we've worked through them, and we rely on our ocean carriers to bring in the empty equipment. It's like bringing a half-empty plane and then sending it back out loaded. And you know what? At the end of the day, it all averages out. So we have, in terms of our ocean carriers, we have roughly 14 ocean carriers, all of the alliances, and then we have the Central American and Latin American niche carriers. With the proximity being so close to Central America, we can definitely see some opportunities in e-commerce and apparel. So I think that apparel will be a big opportunity, as well as produce into New Orleans. Food and beverage is a big focus of ours as well, and we have the same challenges. So we export a lot of poultry and we import a little bit of produce. So that finding that balance on the temperature sensitive or temperature controlled cargo is also a focus of ours. So you can get anywhere in the world from New Orleans, 450 total port connections. I think there's a total of maybe 520 container terminals in the world. So we're almost at each one of them, covering, over 70% of them. And then what else? Let's see, we have our on-dock intermodal connections, our rail connections, and then we have a container on barge service. So container on barge will continue to be, a focus on growth. We've grown quite a bit since 2018. I believe we were doing 28,000 TEUs per year that move up and down the river. And in terms of e-commerce, this is really good for high volume and heavy cargo. Obviously you wouldn't want to put something like furniture on the water. It's just susceptible to things, susceptible to conditions and things like that. But cargo that does work is cargo that is packaged and then wrapped and then palletized. So we actually had Williams-Sonoma moving on the barge from New Orleans up to Memphis. So that was an interesting time. And Williams-Sonoma is one of those importers that really want their cargo in a timely manner. So them selecting the barge was a shocker to all of us. And you know what? They loved it. And in terms of our gateway connections, although we don't have a lot of DCs here, we are working with quite a few of the, Fortune 500 companies. We have, so what are we doing as a port to attract e-commerce and distribution centers? Well, we're working at the state, regional, and local levels to really align synergies so that we can sell our services along with the city, along with incentives. And really, I think we've came a long way in the last 2 years in aligning those synergies and having more of an inclusive way of selling New Orleans as a whole, as a logistics market, as an economic driver, as a tech industry, food and bev. So we have greatly aligned synergies. And in addition to that, we've also, again, focused on trying to get an import tax credit. Why? Because some other states have it. Alabama has one. The state of Virginia has one. And we're really just looking at equaling the playing field. And we do think that it's an advantage to have that for the importers who decide to move into Louisiana and break ground and have a tax liability here. We have talked to and recently been in touch with quite a few importers, Home Depot, Tractor Supply. We visited them in their headquarter offices. Walgreens, Medline was a huge project that we worked on together with LED. It was, LED's win. And we went there and talked about our logistics focus. Just to name a few, we've really shifted our focus on targeting the right importers for e-commerce, Aldi and Lidl in terms for food and bev, grocery, produce, you name it. We've attacked them. So we're continuing to have those conversations, and as opportunities present themselves, we kind of work together with Lewis's group and the LED group, and so we're happy to be here. And if you guys have any other questions, or if you have another slide, Lewis, I can talk about that too. If you go to the opportunity, the e-commerce slide.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So some of the, in addition to just distribution centers, when you think of a distribution center, you think of retail, right? It's always retail. Well, there are plenty of opportunities in distribution. There's still Amazon type, operations, but also we'd like to see about attracting a national 3PL. Now, a national 3PL is a third-party logistics provider. They have an office, they do the customs clearance, they work with the ocean carriers, and they also handle the storage, warehousing, deconsolidation, logistics inland to the final destination for the importer. So something that we really want to see happen is, attracting a global 3PL. So some of the local 3PLs, they work very well in the business, but having those global ties is really, it's about relationships and being able to communicate from someone right now to, somebody in Russia. It's a matter of, communications, relationships, and then understanding the lingo of the business. So it's really important to align those synergies with a global 3PL. We've also looked at specialty coffee roasters. So Lewis mentioned about the about Folgers roasting every bean. That's 600 million pounds of coffee a year that's roasted in New Orleans. And we have several others, Community Coffee, we have International Coffee, PJ's Coffee, and they're all expanding, massively expanding. And we cannot grow our added value facilities fast enough for them to sustain the same service. And there's actually beans that are moving from Louisiana to other places to be roasted and co-packed or packed and distributed, and actually brought back to New Orleans to distribute. So that's really one area that we could shift our focus is into specialty coffee roasting, or coffee roasting and co-packing, or Pod Pack in Baton Rouge does the K-Cups, and they are actually expanding. So we definitely see lots of food and bev. We see additives that are going into beverage products all day long. The caffeine from the coffee bean is being extracted, and it's being put into everything. You can put it in fruit punch now, and every kind of pre-workout that you see, it's all coming from a green coffee bean, and the extraction of that. And there's some liquid forms of it as well. And we see quite a bit, and I think that's going to continue, not just with coffee and beverage, but also food. So anything that's plant-based and focused, we'll definitely continue to see that sector grow. Plant-based meats, plant-based drinks and things like that, and all of that requires a lot of importing produce from Central and South America. I see some opportunities there.
Awesome. I do want to make sure to bring in Patrick, because he's dealing with the actual sites. And Patrick, if you've got someone on this list that Amanda has been talking to, and they love the connectivity, they love the location of the New Orleans area, what's the benefit of some of the port sites, and how do you sell like the actual sites?
Mm-hmm. So I think Amanda did a great job of giving much more detail than I could have given about the
thank you.
the real flow of cargo in the market. I keep my nose down, especially on I manage all the industrial properties, which is pretty much everything off the river. And so if it's on the river, we consider that the terminal. That's where you're getting the deep draft vessels in. And of course, they have access to the 6 Class 1 rail and truck routes as well. Whereas in the Inner Harbor Navigational Canal, or IH&C, locally also called the Industrial Canal for decades, there is 1,000 acres of industrial real estate that we own. And that 1,000 acres is, for the most part, 2/3 plus is occupied by these distribution users in some way or another. They are dealing with international trade or maritime commerce. And I would say our focus on leasing up the areas that are vacant really comes down to highlighting the connectivity between the New Orleans public belt, which is what gets us to the 6 Class 1 rail lines, and the barge access. Now, every one of our properties can be accessed by the New Orleans public belt. The majority of them can also be accessed by barge access. Some things that limit barge accessibility might be it might be just off the canal on the other side of it, might be a smaller parcel or a subsection of a larger parcel. So not every user has to be a water-based user. I think that's another key component, is to say that we're really focused mostly on intermodal, because just from the concept of if it's all trucking based, then it's more likely that user is purely domestic and is not shipping or receiving international cargo. And our focus has always been, and always will continue to be, on developing that cargo movement and developing that intermodal gateway that is the Port of New Orleans. That's our core competency, our strength as a port, is that intermodal connectivity there. And so each of the users that we have, again, if someone needs rail access, that's my big driver these days, because if you just need a piece of land and you don't need rail and you don't need water access, then why do you need the specialized industrial land we have, right? It doesn't really make much sense. We don't see the benefit necessarily to that relationship, and I wouldn't think someone else would, because if you don't need rail and don't need water, you probably get cheaper land with similar highway connectivity somewhere else. And so anybody that's talking to us is kind of self-selected themselves into that intermodal user, and they've got to work with us. The nearest comparable properties, not to be too specific, but water accessible industrial properties do not have rail access. And so that's why we keep focusing on that. Is if you're, our unique advantage is having the rail and barge accessible properties. If you want that on the river, you pay a lot more than you would pay to get it on the canal. And if you want on the river, it's probably because you have something deep draft. We cannot take deep draft on the river. However, with this new container terminal, we are going to have over 500 acres of developable industrial real estate. It could be up to 700 acres. Depends how it's all built out. At the end of the day, we're several years from actually having full design in place and full workups on what we want to do there. But that's going to be accessible by deep draft, and with perhaps a short drayage or a short movement of the cargo from the dock to the vessel. To the parcel, and we'll have rail access. And we could start discussions on 100-acre developments or 10-acre developments. And that's going to be the unique kind of situation here, is it's a blank canvas. As long as it takes the community's concerns into consideration as well. We're not typically looking at manufacturing. We're not typically looking at true heavy industrial sense in the sense that negatively affects communities. What I mean by it is we often will have increased truck traffic, but that usually is going to have to be tied directly to a highway anyway. We're not going to try to go through a neighborhood to get there. We try to be very mindful of how we develop as far as the community goes as well.
Awesome.
But ultimately it's more jobs and it's more cargo movements, and that's what we're here for.
Cool. Well, let's move on to talking to our entrepreneurs, but it's super clear that the Port of New Orleans, and it's great from my vantage point, that you guys really have a focus on distribution and e-commerce and a new strategy, and we're going to have new infrastructure to help, market and companies take advantage of the entire region, really. And, even though a lot of the new container terminal is in St. Bernard, the only way to get to it is right up 510 on through New Orleans East. So right next to that Six Flags site. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities. Patrick, Amanda, thank you. I want y'all to stick around because we're going to have some questions and answers if we have time at the end. But I did want to talk
Louis,
to our...
Someone has a question. I think you're best suited to answer on the chat.
Yeah, Jeff's question: what incentives could be available for logistics startups?
Yeah,
do you have an answer for that?
Well, I figured the economic development group would know more about the incentives. I don't want to put you on the spot, but
yeah, that's a good question. Amanda and I have actually had some similar conversations with our partners at the state, and they're interested in talking. There's a number of different projects and programs that they have available at the state level where they see some of those projects as dovetailing really nicely with the infrastructure upgrades that the port either has funded or is lobbying for. So Jeff, I think we have a lot on the table. So good question. Good catch, Patrick. All right, I want to introduce our entrepreneurs for the smaller to medium-sized business portion of our virtual tour today. Kanisha Brown is with Another Level Beauty. Kanisha, there you are. Hey, how's it going? You're on mute. There you go.
Hey, it's going good. I apologize.
No worries.
How you guys?
Good. And then Krista Cotton is with New Orleans beverage group El Guapo Bitters. Good afternoon.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Hey. So I will start off with you, Krista. Tell me a little bit about your business and how has e-commerce changed for you over the past year? How are you using it?
So we self-manufacture, we don't co-pack our own line of cocktail bitters, syrups, and mixers in Uptown New Orleans. And before the pandemic, our main growth strategies were in distribution. I want to have my woman in business certification, and I won a supplier diversity deal with Costco. And we work pretty heavily with independent bar and restaurants. We're in about 40% of the Forbes 5 Diamond resorts across the country. And a lot of the James Beard and Michelin chefs of the world are champions of our products and our brand. So when COVID hit, Costco unfortunately pulled my supplier diversity deal temporarily to make way for toilet paper. True story. And the next week, all of my bar and restaurant partners around the country closed. So we found ourselves without our 2 primary sources of revenue in about 8 days. And we switched our business model to focus on direct to consumer online, both through Amazon and through our website. And we immediately saw an uptick in business to the point of where, if you look at our revenue year over year, but on a monthly basis, our April 2020 revenue was 882% higher than April of 2019. And 92% of those sales were direct to consumer online. So ultimately that slowed down a little bit, which was good because it was sort of like drinking through a fire hose, and we needed to catch our breath and implement systems to be able to catch up and fill all the orders that we got at the height of the pandemic. But we tripled our revenue last year, and we're on track to triple again this year. So we're negotiating for a building that is somewhere between 7 and 8 times larger than the building I'm in currently. And direct to consumer is here to stay. So we are we're growing and we're learning as we go.
Wow. And you know, beverages are not often something you think of getting in the mail. You just equate going to the store and getting them. So it's cool to see that that's a product class that you're seeing more direct to consumer online.
Correct. So I think people find our brand and really resonate with our quality and our sourcing practices. And we have a lot of repeat business from people who find us and continue to buy online.
Awesome. Well, I think Kenesha's story is similar in the vein that it's a product that most people normally looked at as a service or something that you would need to go touch and feel. And they've really pivoted with beauty products. And I also wanted to note that Kenesha and Another Level are members of the Resilient Corridor Initiative, which is an Olivier initiative to help small businesses stay alive through the pandemic in New Orleans and specific neighborhoods. So Kenesha, tell us a little bit about what you're selling online and how'd you get there and how's it doing?
Well, we just started due to the pandemic. So we're just trying to sell herbs and relief meditation items, just trying to get into new things like meditation and spiritual cleaning and all that comes with the beauty industry for is keeping your skin right naturally without the chemicals. So that's what we're trying to start.
How's it going?
It's going. it is going. I'm laughing because I just got the suite next door too to kind of expand to give me a little more space to do what I'm trying to do. And I'm just getting into it, get my feet wet with it because I've been doing beauty. I've been in the beauty industry for over 20 years. So due to the pandemic, it kind of forced us to find other avenues to kind of make money because you couldn't touch the client. But I still had to keep in touch with the client, let them know I'm here, questions, daily care, any kind of information that you need, I'm available still.
That's awesome. And the R in the RCI initiatives is resilient. And I think that exactly shows what you guys are doing at Another Level. Where's your facility? Where in New Orleans are you?
It's located 7128 Diamond Road. It's in New Orleans.
Awesome. So what's your thought on doing business and fulfilling those orders here in New Orleans? Was there any choice for you, or this is just definitely where your business was going to be?
Well, actually what happened was, I've been in the business, like I said, for over 20 years. So due to the pandemic, the salon that I was working into prior to COVID was forced to shut down. So that put me in a position where I have to do something else to try to generate, income.
Awesome. Well, we're excited that you're doing it.
So boom.
Yeah,
yes,
we're excited you're doing it in New Orleans, and I think Krista can probably share a lot of her lessons over the past year and a half. And Krista, before we move on, what's is doing business in New Orleans an advantage for El Guapo?
Yes. So we've done a lot of market research recently to sort of justify the massive leap in size that we're planning for. And what we have found for our industry specifically is that people have such an affinity for New Orleans that we're outselling similar products 4-to-1 just because our labels say New Orleans. So that's specific to my industry. But yes, we love being in New Orleans. I left here one time. It didn't go that well for me. So I tell my parents all the time, you'll leave me. You can move me out of here when I'm horizontal, but I'm in it to win it in Orleans Parish, and I'm not leaving. So
awesome. Well, Kenesha, Krista, thanks for joining.
I do.
Thanks for joining, and it's awesome to be able to have this discussion reach from like Amazon to another level beauty products and everything in between in New Orleans. So best of luck to both y'all, and we'll pass along your information on your websites when we send out this information to everybody. Yeah, Krista?
To answer Amanda's question in the chat, we're currently in, I think, almost all 50 states at this point, in 3 countries. We're working on our 4th right now. So we export and then we do import. We're trying to work on this with COVID. We've learned a lot in supply chain, and that's our biggest struggle. But we do import a ton of spices, and then glass manufacturing in China, which we're trying to Americanize, but it's harder said than done. So, or done.
Right.
So.
Well, we would definitely be happy to help guide those conversations. We're, supply chain experts, and we have a lot of relationships within our network that will get you to the right people. So if either of you ever have any questions about importing or exporting, we're the experts, and we'd love to hear from you. And Kenesha, I'd love to hear about the self-care story. All of us need a little bit more self-care. You girls are very inspiring. This is awesome stories from both of you.
Thanks so much.
Well, thanks everybody. I want to move on and just take a look at a couple of sites that I think would be interesting distribution e-commerce sites, from the small kind of to the medium, and then we'll do some Q&A. So this is I-10 at Michoud Boulevard, next to, directly adjacent to the Six Flags site. This is a large, almost 100-acre property that just came on the market this spring. It's currently listed for sale at $10.7 million. But as you can see, it's got interstate frontage, right at an exit, at the Michoud Boulevard exit. And in the next couple of months, as we know more about what are the next steps for the Six Flags site, I can see a lot of interest at this property, for some of the bigger names who are looking to do substantial distribution centers for the South Shore and the metro area. This is one that, we're always marketing with our partners at CSX and at Entergy. CSX owns this property on Almonaster. At the bottom of your screen is the Intracoastal Canal, and right above is the curve of I-10 in New Orleans East. So this is an 80-acre site. They've got CSX rail service on site, and it is actively being marketed for sale or for lease from the CSX folks. Entergy is working with them to make sure that they've got all the utilities noted at that site. We really think this is an awesome opportunity for a rail-heavy user, and CSX is more engaged than ever in getting this site out there. So we've submitted it for a few projects, and we're also looking to get some of the statistics on the site, out in a more marketable way. So I think this is a really interesting site for the right user. This is one that I think this property's a great site for anybody who needs to ship anything, because it's next door to a FedEx facility. This is at Industrial Parkway, right off of old Chef Mentor Highway. It's about 10 acres, really reasonable price. It's priced at $650 and some change, actively for sale, right near the Michoud facility, close to the Intracoastal as well. Just got a lot of opportunities for a nice, medium-sized distribution center. And then this property literally came in my inbox about 30 minutes before we were setting up for this program this afternoon. And I misspelled it. See, I missed the H in Johnson. I was that excited to get it out there. 2800 North Johnson in the Mid-City area, 40,000 square foot warehouse with dock high capabilities. So it's got a number of, it looked like there were about 3 or 4 docks on the outside. It is new to market, I believe, as of today or this week. It is being marketed by Ben and Berka for sale and for lease. And that's in the area of Mid-City, where there's a lot of interesting kind of commercial industrial hybrid operations going on. So I think it could be a really interesting site for someone who wants to maybe manufacture, package. You could possibly have some retail on the site, but still have all the attributes of a true industrial facility. As you can see, that's what it's being used for now. So I wanted to open it up to any questions. I know we've been kind of going back and forth with questions in the chat, you know, through our hour here, but I also wanted to be respectful to everybody's time. But I will ask Patrick and Amanda, if you guys want to weigh in, what do you think is the 1 or 2 things that are missing for us to be able to be super competitive in that distribution center, e-commerce space, and how can this group get there?
Good question. What are we missing?
I would.
Oh, go ahead, Patrick.
I would say we have trouble finding large tracts of land that are affordable to develop. A lot of our tracts of land have wetlands issues, or are, you know, some of the features that make them that are positives are also the negatives. The fact that it has water access, let's say, you know, or barge access, or however it may be, can also usually means it has some sort of water management issue to deal with. And so at least on port property, we don't have very many sites above 20 acres that fit the national profile of what everybody's looking for. You know, they say they want all these wonderful features, and when you put it all together, it's very difficult for us to find that site. Rail access, water access, not flood prone, above 40 acres. You know, those are tough things to put together. And so it's about finding the type of user who fits what we have in the market, I think, and maybe more focusing our efforts towards starting with what we have and marketing to that perfect, you know, user who is not as concerned about whatever the negatives are. I feel like a lot of the RFPs, a lot of the you know, RFIs, the requests for information that come in from these national site selectors, you know, I usually 3 out of 5 times I could look at it and just write it off right off the bat that I don't know of a property that fits that. And I think maybe putting together a list of those properties more specifically, and doing like the LED site selections and putting more out there for, you know, like that 97 acres. I wasn't aware of that, you know, 97 acres on by Jazzland. But I'm also not actively looking for it either in my current role. But that's a great example of a good property to develop, and that's why it's priced at, you know, $110,000 an acre. That's a you know, that's a proud price. I'm not saying anything wrong with it. It's probably still going to have a lot of development costs with it on top of the $10 million. That's what makes it difficult, I think.
Amanda, your one thing.
Yes, I think that all the pieces are there. We on the business development side, the pieces are there. We are just, I think we're just waiting for things to open completely back up and to really start pushing the work that we have all been doing for the last 2-3 years, and really, you know, selling New Orleans as an attractive distribution, e-commerce fulfillment market.
Awesome. We look forward to partnering with you guys to do that. And Krista, Kanisha, final comments. Give us your website. And then Krista, I want to hear what your prediction of cocktail of the summer will be.
Yeah.
People are enjoying some palomas currently. That's make yourself a paloma, and elguapabitters.com and at elguapabitters on Instagram.
Awesome. Kanisha, your website, and what do you think is going to be your hottest seller of the summer?
The website is anotherlevelbeautybar.com, and I'm gonna add the relaxation teas and the herbal teas this summer. So hopefully that's a hot seller.
Yes, great.
I like it. Those are both sounding like great mixers. Those teas could be relaxing added with something else too.
Right, because what I'm finding out is they have a lot of different mixtures that help anxiety. It's a lot of different things that I see that people are looking for.
Awesome. Well, best of luck. Thank you to all the guests. Thank you to the NOLA BA team and Valerie, who helped set everything up today. We've got new plants here in the NOLA BA Global Studios, but we will be sending out the recording of this a little bit later today, along with the presentation, along with everybody's email addresses and websites. So this is all made to foster connections and show off New Orleans. So we'll also be putting it up on LinkedIn later this week. So feel free to share. And I hope you guys all have a great summer. We will be back. Oh yeah, I have the dates up here of our future. We're going to take a little summer hiatus and come back in the latter part of the third quarter on September 14th. And then November 9th. And if you have any topic ideas, please pass them along. Other than that, thanks so much and have a great summer, everybody.
Thanks.